Hello and welcome to Leeroy Gaming, where today I will be providing you with a redone and updated beginner's tips guide to Loop Hero. I am doing this guide based off the demo that is still out right now. The game comes out in just a couple of days, so I thought I would give you an update to my original video. My original video, unfortunately, was plagued with horrible audio issues, but it had some great content. So I got some feedback from viewers. They would like to see it updated. So that now that I have my new mic that has way better audio quality, I am redoing it for you. So I hope that you appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and jump right in to Loop Hero. So where I'm actually going to start is this expedition menu. Now, once you begin the game, you're going to go through a little tutorial that's going to kind of guide your hand. And then at one point, you're either going to die and come back to the screen, or you're going to basically stop early and get back to the screen. So first things I want to point out is the right-hand side, the impact of your chapter, class, and this little section at the bottom. So as you progress in the game, there's going to be modifiers that will impact how much you can get out of each run and also the difficulty. The bigger impact is your class. Now you start with access to the warrior class, but then you're going to access the rogue class and potentially other classes as you go on. This will dictate how you should build your class. So, for example, the warrior, highest durability, and this thing right here, a lot of people overlook this. You get plus 1.5% damage for each second of the fight. So, it benefits you to build your character to be highly survivable, because the longer you stay alive in the game with this class per fight, the more damage you will do. While other classes, maybe you may want to just burst damage before you get killed. Now notice this, additional class stats. This is important because these are the only stats that you will find on gear. So when you're planning your build, you can just know you're going to get damage all, attack speed, etc. And then when we go into the game, I will provide you with kind of some tips on how to build out the warrior. But note, this are going to be the limitations and options for this class, and this will change depending on what class you're playing as. Now, starting warrior gear. It is very important here as you begin. The highlighted, whited out options are the gear that you're going to be able to get. So you're going to be able to get the ring, the shield, the chest piece, and one weapon. All the other ones you will not be able to get. And it also tells you when you get potions, if you get potions, and that's going to be a feature that you're going to get based off potential traits, and we'll go into that in a little bit. What they do, so heal 4% of your hit points, plus 2 each loop, up to 3 potions. So this is, go over what loops mean as well in just a moment. Just know that these are kind of what will basically provide you with your limitations, as well as options of what kind of loot you're going to get in the game. Now, next, town buildings. This will be the next thing you're going to be interacting with. When you first start, all of this is going to be empty. And as you go through, as you fight, as you die, as you come back, you're going to gather resources, and you're going to basically build different buildings, and they're going to have different effects. And this will not only give you more options, like the herbalist hut that gives you access to potions, for example, as I mentioned, but you may get other elements like the gymnasium, which is huge, and this allows you to get the special traits. So this will unlock extra features, and even later, it's going to add extra classes like the rogue class. So for example, here, it's not available in the demo, but the refugee will let you unlock the rogue class. So at the beginning, you're going to have a very bare bone game. And I mentioned this. This is the layout, by the way, of the towns you're going to be able to place things. I mentioned this because when you go back to expeditions, those buildings, for example, will have an impact on this element, which is the card game. So this is the deck building portion of the game. Now, when you first start out, you're going to have almost no limitations, no options here. But as you play a little bit like I have here, you're going to unlock different cards. Now, an area that's not perfectly explained are these factors here. So here, it's saying that in this category, you can have between 2 and 5 cards. I have 3. Same with here, between 2 and 6. This one has 1 and 3. And overall, your deck can have between 7 and 12 cards. Now, this is important because these cards, as they come up, there is a level of randomness. So if you pick the max amount of cards, you may have a bunch of options that can come up, but you may get cards coming up that you don't necessarily want. So by having a concentrated set of cards on the lower end, for example, you're more likely to get the ones you want. So in this case, I want to get Vampire Mansions. I want Blood Groves. I want Battlefields. If I had done this, which I could have, oh, sorry, that would be too much notice. That'd be 13. But let's say I had these two elements. Well, now I have those options, but now I'm less likely to get these three. So you can synergize your tactics of the buildings you want to get with the class to optimize your playing field. Just keep that in mind as you get them. It's just because you get a new card, you may not necessarily want to pick them every time. Read over the descriptors, what they do, and see if they're going to align with your play style. So some of them are purely positive buffs, like a Treasury. Others, spawn monsters. Others have some positive and negative effects. So again, this is a big part of the strategy. And as you'll see, I'll be talking about some of these cards in particular, like the Treasury cards, the rocks, the mountains and meadows, in this strategy section as we look at the actual game. I'm going to confirm that. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Now, I'm going to pause, okay? So as you right-click off and on, you're going to be able to go into planning or real-time mode. Now, a couple things right off the bat. Now, you'll notice normally you won't start with gear. I have a special kind of blacksmith that opens up that lets me start with some basic gear, just a little buff. But this is procedurally generated, and it's going to start with initially some random goos, and you're going to be building this world. So this is the kind of God game portion of this. You don't control this little guy directly. He's going to be going in circles. You're going to be placing things, and as you interact with the game, you are going to basically put him through challenges, hopefully survive, get him stronger and stronger before you unlock the boss. Now, there's going to be two bars up here, a day progress and then a map completion progress. The day progress is very important to keep track of, kind of passively, because every X amount of days, something will happen. So here, you'll notice these slimes, as I described in the bottom, there's a 5% chance spawning a new slime once a day. Other buildings will have, say, every day it's going to spawn something, or every couple of days. This will populate this map and increase the difficulty of your monsters. So there will be buildings, etc., that can let you move faster through an area to kind of speed through the time, or not. So just keep that in mind, that this day period cycle is going to dictate the spawning. Also, certain elements are going to be more dangerous towards the end of the day than during early the day, for example. The other thing to keep in mind is this progress towards completion. Now, this is important because at any given time, at the bottom here, there's this escape, return to camp button. Now, if you retreat, okay, anywhere, while you're alive, obviously, anywhere that's away from your beginning camp, which is right over here, you're going to keep 60% of the resources you're going to gain through that you get from the combat. Okay, that's kind of like get out in emergency. Now, if you go and push yourself and you die, you're only going to keep 30. And if you are basically right near your camp, you can escape with all your loot. Now, why is this important? It's important because, especially when you first start, it's going to be very unrealistic that you're going to, the first couple of tries, beat the first boss, even if you make it to it. And again, he will spawn when this completes. And once it completes, you will no longer be able to go to town. He'll basically like siege the little town, and when you come completely around as if you were going to check into town, you will initiate combat. And then it's 0 or die. If you win, you move on and you get all your loot. If you die, you lose 60, or rather 70% of all the loot you've gathered. So you're going to win strategic. You're going to want to choose as you get closer to the end, as you get closer to completing this, and you kind of estimate you have maybe 1 circle or 2 circles left. You want to say, okay, maybe I want to get out of here with all my resources. If you push your luck, just know that you may lose, 70%. If you're about to reach the end, your life is low, and you don't think you're going to win the fight, just, cut your losses and get out of there, retreat, no shame in it. You're going to keep 60% instead of only 30%. Now, if you want my tip on when you should do your first attempt at the boss, I would probably say wait until you've unlocked enough things to where you've gotten the gymnasiums, and you've probably you start gaining your traits, as I will explain in just a little bit. So keep that in mind as you play, um, because before then you're less likely to be prepared for it and be strong enough to be prepared for it. Also, you're gonna want to make sure you get a nice little synergistic build, and I'll explain that in just a second. So what I'm gonna do right now is gonna do a little cut. I'm gonna play this for just a little bit to get to a portion where I have some cards going, some layouts, so I can give you more tips on playing the actual board. Okay, now I've moved a little further into the game, and there's a couple mechanics I wanted to add on now. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is going to be card layouts and specific combos. So as you fight monsters, you're gonna get random cards that populate in here, and they're going to be one of basically three categories. Either items like this Grove card they can put on the actual road, or you're gonna have items that impact the map, like this Oblivion. For example, erase any established tile or monsters from the road. So for example, if you make a mistake and there's something you don't want to, that is you're realizing is really messing up a combo, making an area too dangerous, you can get rid of it. Let's say, for example, I don't want these wolves here. Boom, they're not there anymore, and neither is that that grove. And then I'm gonna repopulate it there like that. So that's kind of helps you control the board. Other things going to be tiles like the mountains and the rocks, the meadows, and these treasury tiles. Okay, because they're gonna combo off each other. So notice here it says of the rock, you get +2 hit points for just dropping it, and a +2 more hit points for every adjacent rock or mountain. And then the mountains in particular say +5 hit points for each adjacent rock or mountain. Notice there is no baseline bonus for placing it. What this means is you never ever want to put a mountain down first. So as in this combo at the top, I started with a couple of these rocks to get some baseline health, and then when I was able to connect a mountain to at least 2 other tiles, meaning it would benefit 10 health instead of 5, I would place those. Now, you also notice I've kind of built this circle with 1 left in the middle. Now, there's 2 benefits that are going to begin to this when I place this final tile. The first one, I'm going to get +5 health for each adjacent tile, and that works up and down, left and right, as well as diagonal. So this is going to give me 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 max health. But also, it's going to proc a combo, and I saved it this portion just so you can see it. Take a look at that. I got all those resources, plus this now turned into a mountain peak, which has an additional effect of providing an additional 120 max hit points, 5 additional HP for every adjacent mountain rock tile adjacent to this, so you can build off it. Notice that I now have like this open space here, and I can place additional rocks and other tiles there. But it also spawns a harpy every 2 days, and that's a pretty tough kind of monster. So this combo comes at a cost, but the benefit way outweighs the negative. So that's one combo. And so obviously you want to be able to place it in areas where you can make sure you get this 3x3 grid. Now you can only proc this once, so if I were to do another 3x3 grid, it will not turn into another mount, unfortunately. The other combo, early combo you will get are the Treasury. And notice the Treasury says, gives a random resource after placing anything on an adjacent tile. But it cannot be built adjacent to anything. So for example, I have this other treasure tile, I can't place it here. But what I can do is similar to down here, I put it way in the corner. Now, these meadows, what I like about the meadows, it can be placed anywhere. So it's perfect for filling these adjacency requirements. So what I do is I'll place one like I did in the corner, and then I will build these meadows around. I get these base elements. As soon as I place the final one, I don't currently have one to place. What's going to happen is not only is it going to do that effect, but this treasury opens. And so you get a bunch of loot, and then it'll say, empty treasury. But it gives you this bonus for completing it. So you can kind of strategically create this 3x3, work towards this grid. I use this as an example, but I'll normally place one here. I'll fill it out, and I'll just have a whole section where I'm trying to, as I play, get as many of those as possible. Okay. Now there's also combos on the actual on the roads. So for example, here's the village. Heals The baseline actually is quite a bit less. These are all buffed up. But basically, I believe it starts with it's 30 health when you enter it and gives you a quest. And a quest basically buffs monsters to do. Most common, I think, is double the health, but they'll give you extra loot when you beat them. But they will also provide you with extra health based on these wheat fields. So notice the wheat fields say can only be placed next to a village, plus 15 healing in adjacent villages. It spawns a scarecrow that you got to fight. So the combo you would do is wheat field, village, wheat field, village, wheat field, village, wheat field, and so forth. So doing that combo, you're going to maximize the health. So you'll notice here, I have plus 180 health just from those villages. But those are the examples of those. I'll do other combos, like, for example, Vampire Mansion adds vampires to adjacent tiles to combo. So there's other ones that you can choose from, but these 3 main easy combos that I just gave you are really good for beginner play. Now, let's look at the feature of traits. So once you unlock it in the building section, after a certain amount of time, you're going to proc this. And this will dictate how you play. So for example, here are the options I have. I can choose Battering Ram. Here rushes into battle head on, and his first attack has 75% chance of stun. Blissful Ignorance, dealing you a full hand of Oblivion cards. From now on, using Oblivion cards, heals hero by 10% of his max hit points. These are basically just other ways of healing yourself that will fill up at the bottom of these cards. Or Buckler, every counter attack restores 3 times loop hit points. That's a pretty big deal. So if you were to pick Buckler, like I'll pick Buckler right now, this is a build-altering trait. So now all of a sudden, you're going to want to get gear that has that impact to increase your counter. So notice here right now, I have a set plus 7% counter, and I'm going to be looking, okay, are there other loots that I can get that will add counter? Like, I already like my equipped armor has vampirism, attack, and counter, awesome. So I might build more on that to help me heal. And that can be huge, because remember, with the warrior class, you want to stay alive as long as you can. Now, the other strategy I can recommend is comboing as high of a damage weapon as you can. So even if it's white, if it's going to be like 10 more damage, I'm going to take that over to fancy elements because I want the highest damage. And then combine it with vampirism, which is a percentage health. So notice I have 13% vampirism right now. By the time I want to beat the first boss, I want to get this to be 40 and 50. That means 40 to 50% of all the damage I do comes back as health. You combo that with a high damage weapon and maybe get a high attack speed, and you can survive. The alternative way of trying to win is stacking, for example, something like this trait for the counter and getting really high defense, a counter heal effect, and maybe hit points per day. Then you're not going to worry about as much as the other effects, but it'll let you basically just survive long enough to whittle down the enemy. Okay, so those are the strategies for that. And again, the specialty cards, those were just a couple examples. There's a card that lets you repick them that will come up randomly, and other ones, so there will be an RNG how much those help you or not. Now, the final set of tips I want to give you is for combat. So as you go into combat, like you see here, you can pause it at any time by mousing over either the enemy, yourself, or one of your pieces of gear. And then it'll give you information on the stats of the item. I can, in a live fashion right now, at any time drag this while I'm fighting to equipment gear, and it will immediately take effect. Now notice also, it'll give you effects that impact your character. See how it says plus 4%? Well, wait for a second. Now it's 7%, because remember, every second you're in combat, this is going to give you an extra 1.5% damage. Here you can see the vampires have 30% vampirism, and also other traits like undead vampire, has a soul, etc. So this is a good way to kind of see what you're up against. Now, notice I finished combat, I got some loot, I got cards, and I auto pause. So there will be time in the game when there's a ton of things on the board, and if you're not careful, you may want to do something to the board in between your combats. And if you leave it in active mode while you're fighting, you'll get out of combat and you'll get pushed to another one, and that could mean your doom. So you can already hit right click or spacebar and go into planning mode while you were in combat. So it will immediately take you out of pause you as you come out. That is huge for strategic planning. Now, in this case, I notice I got a meadow. I'm going to be able to show you now what happens to that combo with the treasury. So notice right now it says treasury. I put the last place. Look at all that loot. Ton of loot. And now it says empty treasury. It now also has the effect spawns a gargoyle every 3 days now. So there's that negative thing. But it was worth it because I got all these materials. Okay. Now, final tip I want to provide you guys with is dealing with cards, managing cards and gear. Gear has an overflow. So once you fill this up, the second you get the next one, it will kind of push off. You cannot sell gear. You don't keep it from fight to... there is no... you start over every time you battle. So you basically have a certain amount of time. You can decide, am I going to upgrade this? Am I not? Obviously here, with this is a clear upgrade if I want to go for attack and evasion. But notice I'm going for a vampirism build, so even though this is technically lower tier or higher tier, I'm going to keep this blue item instead. Now, as far as gear, as I mentioned, you can upgrade it in or out of combat. The way they're rated is a color system for rarity, so it goes like white, blue, orange, for example. But there's also basically level elements. So these are like level 3. Notice here's from earlier on, level 1. So this will give you relative power, but it's not always going to be what you choose. So here's a level 4 item that is just white and it has a bunch of max health, more than double what I have, but I care about vampirism and counter, so obviously the other one's going to be better. So that will be situational for you, but keep that in mind. Now your cards, there's a limit to how many you can have. This will go all the way to the end and even minimize a little bit before it fills up. But once you finish it up, fill it up, and more come, it's going to throw away whatever's on the far left. So there's a strategy. You do not always need to, nor want to, place all your things right off the bat. So, for example, if I am waiting for a treasury tile like I have here, I could have a bunch of meadows. I don't want to place the meadows until I have a treasury tile just to build off of it. So there have been times where I have like 5 or 6 of these, and I wait for that treasury, and there's a little bit push or luck element. So luckily I got lucky here, so I'm able to do this, for example, and get that benefit. But in other cases, I may be waiting for that random drop of the treasury. In other circumstances, you may be are waiting for a mountain tile to finish up the centerpiece of a big mountain setup. So there's all these elements, and there may be times where you may say, okay, this goblin camp, I don't want this. So you say, I'm about to have this get destroyed anyway, so I might as well get rid of it and to open up space. Okay, so those are some beginner tips for Loop Hero. It gets more complex. You get way more options as you go into the game and into the live game. I hope this helps you get started. If you follow these tips, I guarantee you'll be able to beat the first boss and then push on through. So again, this is Leeroy Gaming, and I will see you guys next time.